Problem number 5. A construction firm was hired to repaint a very large bridge. Written into the contract was a $2 million penalty if the bridge was not completed in 87 days. Yikes. Their crew of 7 painted 1/3 of the bridge in 45 days, so they knew that at that pace they would never finish the bridge on time. How many more painters should they hire to allow the crew to paint the rest of the bridge in the remaining 42 days? Alright, well, I'm going to start by making a table. Oops, to list out the information that we know. So we have the number of painters, and well, I'm actually going to write this as the number of bridges, even though there's only one bridge, but this will be the portion of a bridge. I could actually write that as portion of bridge and days. Okay, so we know that it has taken 7 painters. It took them 45 days to paint 1/3 of the bridge. Okay, so let's try to figure out what the rate of one painter is. Okay, and we're going to assume that all painters paint at the same rate. So that may not be true, but for this problem, since we don't have any other information, we'll just assume that all painters paint at the same rate. Alright, so let's figure out how many days would it take one painter to paint 1/3 of the bridge? Okay, so actually let's figure out how many if it takes 45 days, how many, if they only had one painter, how much of the bridge could one painter paint in 45 days? Okay, so we can just divide this by 7. So this would be 1/21. Okay, and then let's continue on and figure out how much of the bridge could a painter paint in 1 day. Alright, so again we can just divide this by 45, so it's 1/21 times 45. Okay, I'm not going to actually multiply that out because I've got more work to do, and I'm thinking if I leave it in factored form like that, I can probably do some simplification easier, because I know the factors of 45 and 21 easily. But if I multiply that out, I'll lose sight of what the factors are, because I can probably do some canceling eventually. Alright, so we'll leave it like that. Now, they have 42 days left, right? So, one painter, how much of the bridge could they paint in 42 days? One painter could paint in 42 days. If one painter can paint this much in 1 day, then in 42 days they just would be able to paint 42 times that. So I'm going to write 42/21 times 45. Okay. So now we want to know how many painters could, well, I'm just going to write it like this. I'm going to say if we had X painters, they could paint 42 times X over 21 times 45 parts of the bridge in 42 days. Okay. Now they've painted 1/3 of the bridge, so we want this portion of the bridge to equal 2/3, right? Because they've got 42 days to finish the bridge, and they've got 2/3 left to paint. Okay, so if we can just solve for X, we can figure out how many painters total they will need. Okay, so let's solve that equation. Actually, I'll just write it off to the side here. 42x over 21 times 45 is equal to 2/3. Alright. Well, let's see if we can simplify this a bit. Alright, because we know that, 42 is 6 times 7, which is 2 times 3 times 7, right? and this is 3 times 7, and this is 9 times 5, so I can see a 3 and a 7 right away. I just cancel that out, okay? And that's all the factors. So we're to 2x over 45 is equal to 2/3, okay? Now we can just cross multiply, or essentially multiply both sides by 45 and multiply both sides by 3. Alright, so I'm just going to cross multiply it. So I can say 6x is equal to 90. Now that's not too bad. We can divide 6 by 90, right? X is equal to 90 over 6, which is equal to, what if I divide by 3, that'd be 30 over 2, or 15, okay? So what was x? I guess I didn't really, let's see, makes that look like a 15. I didn't write that very neatly. 15. Alright, so x was the total number of painters we need. Okay, so the total number of painters that we need to have working in that last 42 days is 15. Now we already have 7, so how many, and the question asks, how many more painters? How many more? This is the key word here. How many more painters do we need? Okay, so if we already have 7 and we need 15, then that means we need 8 painters. Okay, so we need 8 additional painters to be on the job during those last 42 days in order to finish the job on time and not incur this $2 million penalty. I don't think a contractor wants to pay that. So, so let's hire 8 more painters. All right, great. We'll talk to you later.